Welcome back to the Anatomy of a Scam, a Crime Stoppers Victoria and Bank Vic podcast, where we peel back the layers of deception and expose the world of scams. In this podcast series, we journey through the life cycle of a scam, from scammer to scamee, and to those who catch the criminals behind them. Our guests will equip you with the knowledge and tools to shield yourself from scams. In episode 2, The Victim, we'll be joined by Mark Elder, the head of risk operations at Bank Vic. Mark will delve into the harrowing experience of a scam victim, shedding light on the emotional and financial fallout that often accompanies these crimes. With years of experience in risk management, Mark will also discuss how scammers exploit vulnerabilities and what steps we can take to safeguard ourselves.
The Head of Risk Operations at Bank Vic is my official title, so the main component of that is heading up our fraud and scam team. So we investigate all scam activity on our members. A lot of what we do is based around card fraud, but what we do see a lot of is the more higher value transactions, such as some of our scams we see, romance scams, investment scams, and a recent case we've had around a false billing scam, which has quite a big impact to our members.
Bank Vic recently encountered a member who fell victim to a false billing scam. The victim was in the process of purchasing a property and had been corresponding with his solicitor for several months. During this time, he received an email that appeared to be a legitimate invoice related to the property transaction. Trusting the correspondence, he didn't think twice before making the payment. Little did he know this was a carefully orchestrated scam designed to exploit his trust and urgency during a significant life event. As we unpack this story, we'll explore how scammers manipulate seemingly straightforward situations and the steps the member and Bank Vic took to recover from this distressing experience.
We recently had a member who was purchasing a property, and he'd been corresponding with his solicitor over a number of months in relation to this purchase. And as it was getting closer to the settlement, he received an email saying, "We need you to disperse funds to our trust account so that we can settle."
Mark reached out to the member directly, taking the initiative to confirm the bank details and ensure that such a significant transaction was indeed legitimate.
We proceeded to then send the money off to the other institution, and everything at that point was fine.
The following day, Mark and the team at Bank Vic received an alarming call from the other banking institution involved in the transfer of $1.1 million. They had some concerning news. The account name didn't match that of the solicitor handling the transaction. The potential implications of this discrepancy were significant, prompting immediate action to investigate further and protect the members' funds.
So we again rang the member and said, "Look, we've been alerted. Are you sure this is the correct account? Have you verified?" He was, "Yep, no, everything's fine." The next day after that, we received another message from the other institution saying, "We don't believe this is the correct account."
And they were absolutely correct. The money was, in fact, on its way to scammers.
We discovered later that the email between his solicitor and himself had been intercepted, and a different account number had been put on, which was for a third party, which wasn't obviously his solicitor's trust account.
Scammers had been waiting and watching for their moment to pounce. And when the deal was almost done, they sent their own bank details through, impersonating this innocent and excited home buyer's solicitor.
This property purchase, as we're looking at over $1 million, had been transferred out, which was the member's total life savings, all his super from his 30 years of work with a government agency. So it was quite distressing for him at that point in time.
But how did this actually happen?
So what generally happens is they will connect into an email address and look for items such as payment to come through. So they'll put into a system and it comes up payment due or the like, and they will then start to intercept that email and replace it with the other account details. They'll sit on it for up to 3 months just waiting for something to occur. You think about it, the average property settlement time's around that 3-month period. Somebody engages a solicitor or a conveyancer, builder, car purchase. They just wait for that final payment notice to come through, and then it picks up their systems, and here we go.
You might be thinking, so how did the malware get there in the first place? It's an important question, and understanding the origins of the infection is crucial for preventing future incidents.
It's simple. Somebody may access their laptop on an unsecured Wi-Fi network, such as a hotel network. Somebody might not have the correct security on their laptop or their phone.
The emotional toll of losing, or even just believing you've lost, over $1 million would be staggering. Mark sheds light on how the victim felt during the harrowing period of the scam.
Obviously, he's very distraught once he discovered that the funds actually had gone to the wrong account. As I said, this is this guy's whole savings. We couldn't 100% guarantee to him that we were going to get the funds back. We got to a period where about 2 weeks passed, and obviously at this point in time his settlement date had also passed. So he started to pay penalty interest on the property as well for the new purchase, and that obviously started to cause more stress for him. When we had spoken to him, you could hear the stress levels in his voice had quite significantly changed, and he was getting upset with the time delays, and you could see that it was taking an effect on his life, and that was really distressing for all of us. We were all very much at BankVic very engaged in this transaction, trying to get the funds back.
This victim was on the verge of losing $1.1 million, but the vigilance of banking institutions, including BankVic, saved him his life savings. So the good news is that there are measures in place to ensure this doesn't happen to you.
Each bank has a different risk level. BankVic, for example, we have a name mismatch report where we will return funds if they're not in the same name as the account holder. We may occasionally try and contact members, depending upon if it's a larger value, but it's something which, as I said, each bank has its own risk levels. And one of the items which is coming up under the Scam Safe Accord, for example, is that verification of account names. That will provide a lot more surety for all people, regardless of the amount, whether it be $10 or $1 million.
From January to September 2024, Victorians lost nearly $41 million to scammers, showing that most scam stories don't have a happy ending. However, this particular scam victim was 1 in a million.
In this case, we were very lucky. The other institution actually held the funds and there was no loss to our member. Like in most cases, these funds are gone within the space of half an hour. They're in one account and they're offshore via crypto or transferred out via international transfers. So in this case, due diligence by the other institution has saved the funds from being transferred, but then began the process of trying to get the funds back as well. There's what we call a trace and recall system which is required. We initiated that straight away, and in this instance there was 2 separate banks involved, so it transferred through 2 banks. It did require additional levels of information to return the funds to the member.
This victim got lucky, but statistics reveal that's not always the case. More often than not, the money is irretrievable. Once it leaves your account, it's often offshore and untraceable.
We have had a number of instances via various scams. A number of years ago, we did have a similar type of situation where the funds did get released and were offshore in a matter of minutes. In that case, we actually had to provide a loan for the person to actually complete the purchase of their property.
When it comes to tackling scams, law enforcement plays a crucial role. Police can assist in investigations to recover lost funds. However, many scams are far from clear-cut. Each case is unique, and complexities can arise, as seen in the case of our victim.
They did approach police, and that was one of the first things we told them to do. It's a bit of a strange situation where the funds weren't lost until funds are actually physically stolen. It's hard for the police to actually be involved. Our previous case, however, we do know that both state and federal police were involved, which took quite considerable investigations through that path. Obviously, the other avenue he's taken is to approach his solicitors to try to arrange settlement to be extended and the like. So there's a fair bit of work that he's trying to do, as well as worrying, is my money coming back?
Mark also explains what the situation looks like now, detailing BankVic's ongoing efforts.
We've still got an active investigation open on this one to try and obtain a little bit more detail, and we'll work with the relevant agencies, because while the funds were recovered, there was attempted theft of a considerable amount of money.
Scams can manifest in a multitude of ways. Much like a chameleon changes its colours to blend into different environments, scammers can tailor their tactics to suit their targets, making them difficult to identify. Each version of a scam can look different, but the underlying methods often remain the same: manipulation, deceit, and the exploitation of trust. Even this false billing scam can take on various forms.
So this scam is being used in other ways. We've seen it with progress payments on buildings for properties as well. That's obviously still in the property market, but when there's a progress payment due for a new home construction, car purchases as well is another area. And also, this might just happen out of the blue to anybody who's paid a bill before. The amounts might not be as high. However, this scam has been known to send a bill out and saying, you owe us this amount, just a change to the account details on there.
False billing scams may be one of the most financially damaging scams out there, but they aren't the most common. In Mark's role, he encounters a wide variety of scams. seeing everything from online phishing attempts to investment fraud and everything in between. With his extensive knowledge, Mark's key piece of advice is quite simple. If someone calls you unsolicited, never give out your one-time password or OTP. While banks may ask for an OTP to verify your identity when you call them, you should never provide it to anyone who contacts you first.
We generally find that once a member's been scammed, they're often super cautious. But we do see, yes, we notice you've been scammed. We need you to give us access to your laptop so that we can actually cease any further activity. And then they access internet banking and the like. And again, this is where, if somebody's asking you to provide details, don't provide access codes to your internet banking to anybody either. If somebody really needs you to do something, they'll ask you to go to police or come into a branch.
Mark explained another method to protect yourself from potential scams, especially those that involve transferring money.
What we always encourage people to do, if you've got a bill you're paying for the first time, is to send an OSCO of 50 cents, $1 to the person, then ring them, ask them, have you received the initial payment? That way you're confirming you're dealing with that person.
As scams evolve, voice impersonation technology is making it increasingly difficult to discern legitimate calls from fraudulent ones. This development highlights the importance of having a code word or password shared among loved ones for discussions about money transfers over the phone. Establishing this safeguard can provide an extra layer of security and help ensure that sensitive financial conversations are taking place with the right people. Let's explore how implementing these measures can protect you from potential scams.
Deepfake AI technology is on the rise. It's already starting to creep into the market. So if you've got family networks, we would recommend that something like that would be a really good idea. My daughter and I have one. It's always not just Dad. She calls me by my nickname when she wants me to send money, so I know it's her.
Banks, given their position, often see scams more than most and have significant concerns about emerging trends. At present, a significant number of scams are occurring through text message fraud, with nearly 70,000 reported so far in 2024. These unsolicited messages often deceive unsuspecting individuals into revealing personal information or sending money.
Our biggest volume, so not dollar-wise, but our biggest volume is goods not received scams. So where somebody advertises something on Facebook and requests payment up front, payments made, and then the goods are never received, person's blocked, and funds are gone. If you haven't seen the goods, don't pay for them.
While text message scams are the highest in volume, investment scams lead to the highest combined monetary losses, totaling almost $20 million so far in 2024. These scams prey on individuals seeking financial growth, making them particularly devastating.
Investment scams are one of the biggest that we see. There's always ads popping up on Facebook where Elon Musk has got a great initiative for you. So we just need to be careful that you are talking to somebody real. Investment is not wrong, but it's important you understand who you're talking to. Have a conversation with the person. If they become aggressive in any way, stop dealing with them.
An anonymous scam victim came forward to share their experience with investment scams.
I've always been intrigued by cryptocurrency, and I've had friends talk about making money on different platforms. At work, I received an email from a crypto platform, and it didn't sound very salesy. It felt a little bit more like an educational email. I didn't think I would have read it if I wasn't bored at work and kind of looking for a distraction anyway. I decided to do a little investigating and actually visited their website. It looked pretty legitimate, and I decided why not? I already had the savings. I ended up investing a substantial amount, more than I'd like to admit. It was actually in the thousands. But it was seeming to work out well. It almost felt like a little bit of a high when I saw my investment generating decent profits. So of course, I started to invest a little bit more. I've been thinking about a holiday for a while now, so I thought what a perfect time to use some of my profits toward that. I decided to withdraw my funds, but I was told I needed to pay a tax or a tax offset on my profits. This was the first I'd heard of such a requirement, but I actually couldn't move to the next step and withdraw my money until I asked that I paid. I reached out to the chatbot on the website, and of course I didn't get a reply, which was my first gut drop. I then noticed that my investment's value just started to decline rapidly. I went from thousands to dollars in literally a day. I tried their number, and of course it was disconnected, and I didn't get a response from any emails or any other communications that I tried. It's very embarrassing, but I decided to cut my losses and change my bank details before I lost any more money. If I could warn anyone else who's looking at cryptocurrency or any investment, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Investment scams can be financially devastating, especially for individuals with savings or a small nest egg. Mark also shared that he often comes across victims of romance scams, some of whom struggle to accept the reality of their situation. These scams can be especially devastating, causing significant emotional and financial harm. These scammers exploit victims' feelings, making them more vulnerable to manipulation. One courageous individual affected by this cruel scam bravely shared their story.
It all started with a message on Facebook from a guy claiming to be a soldier stationed overseas. At first, I thought it was harmless. I was kind of just curious and engaged in conversation. He seemed pretty friendly. He had a mutual friend and lots of other friends on Facebook, so it seemed kind of real. Before long, things took a turn. This guy was claiming that he wanted to marry me, and I was caught up in the excitement. I just remember thinking how easy it all felt. Then the request started. It began with small things, like asking for iTunes gift cards. I thought, okay, no big deal. But then the amounts grew larger. I found myself justifying it. They need help. They're in a tough situation. These are the kinds of things I told myself. The story became more complicated. Suddenly, they were in Togo, Africa, talking about gold he had received for some sort of act of heroism. I was skeptical. Why would a soldier need to send gold home? Then came the big sort of finale, I guess. They claimed they were arrested and had their gold seized. Now they needed $8,000 to get out of jail. Like, this can't be real. Still, I was torn. I somehow had feelings for him, right? Then they said that a church would help, but I had to send $4,500 first. I felt trapped in this really weird narrative, knowing deep down that something was off, but wanting to believe it, that I was talking to a real person. And we had really normal and sweet conversations too, for a long time before any sort of monetary request was made. It's hard to admit it, but I see how easy it is to get caught up in a web of lies. I'm still trying to process what happened. I can't let the scam define me, but the allure of connection is powerful.
Fortunately, it's not all bad news, and there are proactive steps we can take to shield ourselves from scams. Mark shared his parting words of wisdom.
Number one is make sure you check with the source. Don't rely on emails or text messages. Always physically speak to somebody to confirm any account details you send into. If you have an opportunity to send $1, verify again. And the most important one is never share one-time passwords.
That brings us to the end of episode 2, The Victim. But the threat is far from over. The financial losses due to scams are on the rise, and the methods used by scammers are constantly evolving. From false billing scams to romance scams, just one misstep can lead to significant consequences. However, knowledge is our strongest defense. In our next episode, we'll hear from the dedicated crime fighters who are working tirelessly to hold scammers accountable. We will also hear about the consequences these scammers face when they get caught. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay informed and stay vigilant. The next scam could be just a click away.